Welcome to Radio Free South Africa. This is your host, Karen Smith. Our guest tonight is Leigh Oxley du Preez of the South African Family Relief Project. We have spoken with Leigh before about the work that her charity does in the white camps in South Africa. Tonight, we would like to talk a little bit more about the expanding problem that the whites are having, because there are many companies leaving South Africa right now. Many of the mines are closing. Barclays Bank have sold out their shares in the Absa Bank in South Africa, which means a lot more whites are going to end up on the streets. So the job that South African Family Relief Project does expands every single day, and the need for place to stay, food to eat, medical care, schooling for these people grows bigger by the hour. Tonight we are going to talk about the expanding problem, and then we will talk about some suggested solutions to this problem. Welcome to the show, Leigh.
Thank you, Karen, for having me.
It's always lovely to speak to you, Leigh, because the work that your charity does in South Africa is so enormous and so necessary.
Yes, it is. And it feels every day more and more as if we're sinking. But I know we're doing good work, and because of our awesome volunteers who really put a lot of time into help families all over the country is really, truly amazing.
And we need to stress that every single person that works for your charity is a volunteer. They either have full-time jobs or they have very little themselves, but they donate their time, their vehicles, their phone data. They devote everything that they have to this cause of helping others.
Yes, that's true. For the most part, not many are. They're not rich people. Like you said, they do. Some of them have full-time jobs, and they give their time on a weekend and go out and deliver food and pick up donations and go and drop off. So yes, it's quite a job. And we are so grateful for them, because without our volunteers, we would be really, really stuck.
Absolutely. So, Leigh, I would just like to talk a little bit more about the laws that are in place that are preventing whites from getting a job, because people outside of South Africa really do not understand. So we started with affirmative action in 1994, which to everybody didn't seem unfair because it was necessary to get more black people into the job market. And under the National Party, we did have job reservation. We had jobs that were kept specifically for the white people. So overall, it seemed pretty fair that we would now start giving the black masses more opportunities to enter the job market.
Yes. It was very necessary for them to be employed and to create equality in South Africa, and I agree with it to a certain extent. I feel that it should not be to the detriment of the everybody's children's future. And especially the children that were born in a free South Africa. Children that have finished university now with top grades are not being permitted to go to university. For example, 6 distinctions, and they will not be allowed to enter university because a previously disadvantaged black person with 1 distinction gets to go to university. Our universities are burning at the moment because they want education for free. Now, I feel that no matter what race the child is, if he put in the time and the work and the effort to get 6 distinctions, he should be in that position. He should get the chance to go to university, but it's not happening. And our children are being failed because of quotas, because of numbers.
Absolutely, Leigh, because as I was saying, affirmative action seemed fair to everybody. But then it became black economic empowerment with legalized ways of getting rid of the whites in the job market and replacing them with blacks. And then it became broad-based black economic empowerment with more than 141, as I understand it, laws which totally
Yes.
exclude whites and Indians from the job market. So if you have a job, you can be paid off, laid off, and replaced by a black person. But that job will never belong to a white person again. So instead
No.
of being fair and accepted by everybody as fair, it has now become a definite racist way of getting rid of white people.
That's correct. And no matter, and even if they do not find a black person to fill that position will be frozen, and nobody is allowed to apply for that position, which leaves for example, our municipalities lacking in the proper managerial skills to manage the municipalities, and the entire municipality is being failed. And who suffers? The residents and the people suffer, not the municipalities.
Leigh, that was a good point because the municipalities are being badly run, never mention the fraud and the corruption that is taking place within those municipalities. Now,
Yes.
because that services to the public like water, electricity, roads, housing, all of those things are now falling by the wayside because there's nobody to take care of those needs.
That's
Now,
exactly the truth, yeah.
because of that, now we have the black riots and the protests.
Yes. And today, I know Munsieville is mentioned a lot. Today, we heard the news 2 years ago, the residents from Coronation Park were moved by the Red Ants forcibly by trucks after a 9-year court battle to the landfill, which is called Munsieville. And we heard today that the municipality of Mogale City, where Coronation Park was, has now decided that they are bankrupt, and they are selling off pieces of land in Mogale City, including Coronation Park.
Yes. So the the affirmative action, which seemed so fair, has led to riots, protests,
Yes.
burning of councillors' houses, the absolute destruction of areas. I mean, the other day I saw a whole town that was on fire because
Yes.
these people had gone to protest at the municipal buildings, but they don't maintain it where it's where the problem lies. The protest
Yes.
spreads around the entire town. They burn
Yes.
down businesses. They destroy cars, buses, trains, because they have a problem with service delivery.
Yes. They were promised free electricity, and they have illegal electricity connections, and the Red Ants come in and they take down the illegal electricity, and that's why they riot, because they were made all these promises, and nothing has been done in 21 years with regards to the so-called free electricity, and that's why they riot, because the housing is far behind. They have been doing the RDP housing, but it's years and years. That I spoke to one black lady today. She said she filled in her form in 1994 when the RDP houses first came into play, and she still hasn't received a house, and this is 21 years later. So only the select few are being helped in those municipalities.
Yes, and now it's not just the one that you've just spoken about that is broke.
No,
They're going broke all over the country. Yes.
Yes.
So, what I'm trying to point out here is how affirmative action has led to riots and the burning of the country, because literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks, South Africa has been on fire. It is not just one town. It is towns spread all over the country where the black masses who have been promised everything free have now not got it. But it all leads back to affirmative action, because if you had not retrenched and laid off all those skilled white workers who kept the municipalities running, who kept Eskom running, who looked after water affairs, who maintained the streets in decent order, who were able to do the contracts to build the RDP housing, if you had not paid those people off, South Africa would not be on fire today.
Correct, because the skills needed in those positions aren't there, and they, like I said, they would rather freeze the position and keep the position open, lacking skills, and it goes under. The municipality just it fails, and so because of the BEE and the skills that have been withdrawn. This is what we're sitting with today.
In the meanwhile, on the other side of that coin, we have those highly skilled people who ran those municipalities for many, many years, possibly even decades. Those people are now sitting in a white camp where you and your organization and others now have to try and feed, house, send their children to school, make sure they have medical assistance. All of those people who would pull the country out of the burning mess it's in are sitting deprived of the right to life, literally.
Yes, and depriving the country of proper skills that could keep this country afloat. But because of the color of their skin and the racist BEE laws, they are destitute and with no future.
Yes. So, something that under the wonderful South African Constitution, which it is, it's the greatest constitution in the world, if anyone paid attention to it, which they don't. Under that constitution, everybody is free and equal and is supposed to have the same access to everything, to life, to work, to schools, to medical care. They are supposed to, but that is not the case.
No, it's not, because it's not only the BBEE laws or the affirmative action laws. Most of our laws they've got this fine print at the bottom. Yes, this law applies, but only if you are black and if you have been previously disadvantaged or if you have lived on this piece of land. And then we've got the Land Redistribution Act that has come into play now. And so land and jobs are being taken away at the end of the day.
Well, yes, Leigh, because and not only the land redistribution, which is hitting the farmers hard.
Oh, very, very much. They're scared. And you must know, we always talk about Mansfield, but all these other camps that we speak about in South Africa are on these farmlands. It's farm owners that have been generous to take in these people. And if they are fearful in losing their land, they're going to sell their land as soon as possible and leave the country.
Well, not only that, Leigh, we have to look at it this way. For every farmer that has been murdered in South Africa, and as far as I know, there are over 4,000 at this stage. For every one of those that has been murdered, that is a farm lost. And all his farm workers are now out of work. Now, in South Africa, farmers' staff, their workers, they kind of inherited. They live on the farm, and they work, them and their sons sons all work for the farmer. It's been going on for literally centuries that the families live hand in hand and work hand in hand.
That's correct.
Mostly, I'm generalizing, but in general,
yeah, for the most part, it used to be like that.
Yes.
That's true.
So now, not only that farmer is now murdered, his farm workers who don't know any other way of life except living and working on that farm, they also now don't have work or a place to stay.
Yes. And in a lot of cases, the farms that are being given to or sold to the black farmers, the up and coming black farmers, they are funded by the government. And within 2 to 3 years, the farm is a dismal failure. They've sold all the implements. The farmhouse has been stripped bare. Crops have not been attended to, and animals are dying in the camps without food and water.
Even
If
those farms,
there are any left.
even those farms taken over by government agents,
Yes.
government people themselves, those seem to be the worst cases because a government person was given a pig farm, and
Yes.
those pigs died of starvation.
Yes, she was given a fine. The SPCA went and tried to rescue some of the animals, but it was too late. All those animals died.
So, what I'm trying to say is that the camps today, all mostly, and the burning of the country leads back to those
It's
original affirmative action laws.
Yes.
Everything leads back to that.
I agree 100% because all the skills are gone. They are sitting in squatter camps or in a camp, and they can't do anything.
And Leigh, we need to stress the fact that those people will never, ever, ever get another job.
No, they won't. Because of the laws, especially because of the affirmative action laws and the land redistribution, they will not ever, ever, ever be employed. Never. They can do a little bit of a piece job, one day job there, odds and ends and sell and whatever they can. But to have a permanent job and be back where they were, and for most people, these are blue collar workers. They won't reach. These are middle class to lower class people, just barely surviving, and now they've got nothing and they will not be able to get back to where they were ever because of the laws in this country prohibiting them from actually living a proper existence and having employment.
And contributing to the country. Because
Yes.
those skills are desperately needed by the country. But for some reason, the ANC refuses to accept the help of those people to get the country back on its feet.
Yes, that's true.
It seems to me like a death wish from the ANC. It really does. Because all they need to do is give those people work and the country will start recovering.
But they won't because it's against their policy. A black comes first, then then Chinese, then Indian, then coloured, and then white. It's steps that you have to take before you can employ a white person in this country. The only people that are really truly that are white and surviving is either because they are working for the government or have government contracts because they are BEE compliant. And so those are the ones, or their own little businesses, private family-owned businesses or whatnot. But the rest are all failing and they're not being employed. And youth Corin, it's really getting bad. I'm telling you, it's the cries for help is terrible.
Leigh, as I understand it, your phone goes literally 24 hours a day because there is always 10 or 12 or more emergency situations every day. I look at social media. I see your cries for help every day. In this area, there's a couple that need a place to stay and they need some food. In this area, I found people living in their cars with their kids. They need help. This child needs a dentist desperately, but there's no dentist willing to take him because he doesn't have money. I
Yes,
see them all day, every day. And
mm,
it seems to be getting worse.
it is. And I don't know where this is going to end. Winter is nearing, and the camps are full. The families, individual families that we help without being in a camp, they still have a little bit of a housing, not wonderful, but some of them live in a garage or families in a room. Today we went and dropped off food where there are 9 children living in a 3-room home, and the granny and 3 daughters. They all trying to survive in this. So each family has got a room in the house, and there are 9 little children there. It's really it's devastating. You look at those little faces, and you feel that I, as a white South African, we are all failing these children. The government is failing the children. The social services are failing these children.
Well, that is the other thing, Leigh, that is closest to my heart, because as a parent, your first responsibility is those children. And
Exactly.
I cannot imagine how it feels to look at those little faces every day and tell them, well, there's no food and I don't know where we're going to sleep tonight.
You know, do you know how it feels when you've got 10 families per day, for example? Just let's take today. We had six families asking us for help. So first we've got to go through the most urgent criteria. You know, are there little children? Are there babies? Are they elderly? How long have you been without food? Things like that. And then you go and drop off 4 parcels all over the Pretoria, for example, and you still tonight when you go to bed, I couldn't get to these other 2 families. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, you've got another 6 or 7 families begging you for help, and you've still got the 2 from yesterday. So you carry that over, and it's a nightmare. It just doesn't stop, and it's not going to stop. It's just going to get worse because of these laws. I feel South Africa needs to be 100% equal. Everybody's rights should be taken into consideration. But
Ye-
these people and these children are not getting it. They say, no, sorry, you are white. Your father will not get a job. And that's it. That's the law.
But Leigh, it doesn't stop with jobs.
No, it
You
doesn't.
get bad service from the police because you're white. In fact, the police threaten you because you are white.
My husband and I were traveling. We were going to deliver food in a black area to a white family that moved into a black area. We were pulled off by the police, and they asked us, "What are you doing here?" So I said to him, "Sir, we are going to deliver food to a family, but for what?" I said, "Well, this is our organization, and this is what we do." And he said to us, "You better get out of my area. I don't want you here." So they actually followed us out of the area, and we couldn't go and deliver the food to that family. The family had to take the father, who had an injured leg, had to take a taxi, sell some of his clothing or what, just to get enough money for a black taxi. And he met us on the perimeter of the next suburb, because the police chased us away in that area and we couldn't go and deliver the food.
And there is no reason for the chasing
There's no,
away. No legal
no
reason. It's simply
reason
because you're white.
whatsoever.
Because you're white and you're going to help white people. That seems to me the only reasoning behind that.
Well, we didn't even say who we were going to help, so he didn't know. But just because we had white faces, we were immediately threatened, and when I tried to explain to him, he said to me, "I must shut up." And I was very upset, really very upset, because we didn't do anything wrong. We were just going to try and help a family.
I have seen a lot of that on social media recently, that if you go into the police station to open a case, they won't do it because you're white. They just refuse and chase you away. So it is becoming more and more difficult to do your job, Leigh.
Yes. At the end of the day, I've got to bribe a policeman to go and deliver food, because that's what it comes down to. They ask you, hey, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. So either you buy me a pie and a Coke, or you don't come in here. So you buy them a pie and a Coke in order to help a family in need.
Yeah, and it's not as if you have tons of money lying around, Leigh, for this
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Yes,
You
my
know?
point exactly. We've got to feed them in order to feed our people. It doesn't make sense. Really, to me, it's flabbergasted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, as I say, it all goes back to affirmative action, because if you had white policemen doing that job, they would let you through. Mostly because we have some bad apples there as well. I mean,
Yes.
but that's that's another story. You have the bad ones everywhere. But in
Yes.
general, if we had proper police work done by proper trained police people, as we used to have, then this would not be happening. But the affirmative action hit the police force as well. So they have also gone downhill, full of fraud, corruption, rapists, criminals. It is ridiculous how many criminals there are employed
It's
by the
terrible.
police.
Yeah, you can go and hire a gun at the police station with the right connection for the day.
Yeah.
And they give you the gun in police lockup. They use the gun for all kinds of crimes, and then they bring it back if they're lucky.
Yes. So obviously that policeman knows that that gun is not being hired for legitimate purposes. But all that matters to him
He's
is
just out there to make a buck. It's all about money and bribery and corruption. But yet they disarm all the white people. We're not allowed to have guns. We're not allowed to defend ourselves.
No. And if you call the police because you have been attacked by a gang of blacks, because they always come in a gang, there's never less than 4 of them, and often up to 15 of them.
Yes.
If you do defend yourself and call the police, you're the one who's going to go to jail.
Yes.
Always.
They arrest you there on the spot.
And the blacks, who are the attackers, get to walk away and go and do it again.
Yes. And the forensics are so far behind. To wait for a forensic outcome on a crime scene, they botch the crime scenes. The dockets go missing. The witnesses get intimidated. It is, and then we're not even talking about when they do get into prison. It's so easy to escape. We've heard of 3 cases in the last 4 months where prisoners escaped out of the courtroom, just walked out.
And yet if you're a white person and you go to court, your chances are minimal of escaping.
You are shackled to the bench. You will not be able to leave. You won't.
No.
No ways, because you are being made an example of.
Leigh, none of it makes sense to me, because the government in South Africa is saying to the whites, and many of the members of parliament are saying, just go back to Europe. We don't want you here, go back to Europe. But at the same time, they are making it so difficult for you to leave.
It's about their name. They don't want, the government doesn't want to be blamed because of people trying to flee the country and trying to seek asylum or refugee status or wherever. And they deny that there's anything going on here. Their hands are lily white, and there's no blood on their hands.
No, none whatsoever. Only about 94,000 white people in 20 years that have been atrociously and brutally murdered. But of course, we hide that as well. But you were shot 3 times. Well, that was natural causes that you died from.
Yes, correct. You get attacked on your farm or your home, and you go to hospital with severe gunshot and torture injuries, and at the end of the day, you die because of lack of care in the hospital, and they say, oh no, he died of pneumonia, or he died of septicemia, or whatever, natural causes, unfortunately. But they don't understand that that man or that woman or that child got how they got there in the first place.
No, and they never, ever allow those statistics to be made public.
No, not at all.
So, Leigh, your organization also deals with the victims of these things. I know you deal with rape victims. You deal with survivors of these things,
yes,
as well.
Yes, we do. We, for most part, these folks have been very, very traumatized. We don't speak about it. We keep them, protected because of the violence that they've experienced. So that's not on our page, but we do assist with food, because for the most part they leave that home. Where do they go? They've got to move their children away. So we assist with counseling, and we try our best to get the community involved to help the family get over the horrific ordeal that they've been through.
Now, Leigh, that is something that very few people talk about, because these people have been so traumatized. You obviously do not want to draw attention to them, and they obviously do not want to come out and tell their stories, because they are literally suffering from post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
But for me, personally, that is one of the biggest tragedies in South Africa. We talk about the murder victims, but we do not talk about the people who survived.
And those are the ones that have to live the rest of their lives with what they've been through, and that is, oh, Corinne, when you look into the eyes of these people, and the heartache, the loss of their children, or the wife, or the husband, or I get teared up, because I don't think I would be strong enough to stay alive after that. Really, I don't.
I feel the same way, Leigh, because that kind of trauma and those kind of memories that you live with every minute of every day are enough to drive you insane. But there is no help for them either.
No. If a community doesn't,
rally round.
Yes, rally around and really, support this family. But, for the most time, these families go away from the farm and from the home, because it's so traumatizing to stay there, and relive the horrors that happened in that home or on that farm, that they end up in new communities. They don't know anybody. So we've got to put them in touch with services or support groups that can assist in that area, and not everybody understands that what these people have been through.
Well, I don't think anybody can understand it. If you haven't been there, Leigh, how can you understand it? I mean, I look at it from the outside and my heart aches for these people, but the actual reality of it, very luckily for me, is not part of my life. And I have said this many times, it is the survivors that are the biggest story in South Africa right now, because I'm going to be jumped on for this, but I kind of think it's a mercy to die in that situation, rather than to have to go to those state hospitals where you go to die. You will not get good care, and you have been attacked with a panga, you've been burnt, you've been raped, you've probably got AIDS, HIV infection.
Oh, yes.
and all of those things. And you live, Leigh? You live? Why?
Well, yeah, they've got absolutely nothing to live with or live for. We know of several, actually two men. You know what they do? They do a home invasion or a farm invasion, and they torture. They tie up the husband and they torture the wife and children in front of the father for hours. And the one husband. He moved in with his family again. Actually, his ex-wife and her hubby took him in. He was shattered. And after he came out of hospital, and they put him on antidepressants. He tried to go back to work. He couldn't stay there even one day. Went back home and he hanged himself because he couldn't live any longer with the thought of his family being gone and he was left alive. And the other guy gassed himself as well. His family was also tortured, and this man was just left, and he withered away, and eventually he just
Gave up.
gave up. Yes.
Well, Leigh, I've also spoken about that before, because I feel that men in particular, their job is to protect their family. I mean, it's been like that since caveman days. The man has
Exactly.
been the protector.
Yes.
And how you live knowing that you were totally helpless to protect your family.
Well, that's what they want to do. They want to take away the man's power to say, well, you know what? You've been the head of the home and you've been their protector, but I will show you that you are not. And I will show you that I can do anything I want to because I am black. And this is my country. And you do not belong here. In many of these cases, this is what is being said to them. They are being called white pigs and go back to Europe where you came from. And so that happens in a lot of these attacks where these racial slurs are being shouted at the father.
And then, Leigh, if by some miracle these people do go to court, I have seen them, their whole defense is, I did it because they were white.
Yes. And they had money, or they had a place to live, or they had something that I wanted, that I deserve because my skin is black.
Yes, well, I know that they were told, and I think it was Malema who said it, that you cannot steal from white people because you are simply taking back what belongs to you. So if our politicians are telling people that, it is an absolute invitation to go out there and murder, kill, and take away from white people. It's as simple as that.
It's incitement to violence, and they are listening. They are. Do you know, Corinne? Within every week, I think, okay, Monday morning, or I've opened up my Facebook quickly, and I see, oh wow, there's been no attacks on the weekend, and then 2 hours later, the reports start coming in. And you think, oh my word, when is this going to end? When is this going to stop?
And yet, Leigh, this year, it has been terrible the last 2 months, the first 2 months of this year. It seems to have speeded up. There are more and more of them every day, and it's frightening, Leigh.
Corinne, just going on the Gautrain, I mean, this woman was attacked. She stepped out from the Gautrain and she was butchered. She was with a panga. I don't know if you saw it. Her entire arm was slashed open. This woman did nothing. Men are disappearing. Children are disappearing. Women are disappearing. That's not even taking into the account all the home invasions and the farm murders. And then we've got the riots. Our universities are burning. They are burning down the municipalities. The universities, we've got to fetch our children every now and again because it's not safe. And then you've got to park 2 blocks away and hope your child gets to your car safely. Because they want the education for free. They want Afrikaans to be abolished in all schools and universities. Our heritage is being destroyed. It's not being taught at school anymore. We're not allowed to speak Afrikaans. We're not allowed to be helped at a police station in our mother tongue. Yet they can speak it. And if you help, then you have to speak their language. So
Yeah, they, you know, and yet, Lee, we talk about these things and people tell us, well, it's karma. Well, you oppressed the blacks, so what do you expect them to do? Well, you've taken their land from by force for centuries, so what do you expect? The
these are all lies.
I
They
know.
are all lies.
I know, Lee, but the inhumanity that we are surrounded with seems to me that it's almost impossible to get help because people think, because of the lies the media told them about the apartheid years, the segregation years, they seem to think that our innocent babies, who had nothing to do with apartheid, deserve to be raped and murdered because, well, you know, you did this to the blacks. But we did not.
No.
There are not millions of reports of torture and rape. I don't know of white people that went in gangs and tortured black families and raped their children.
No. And if that was the case, how come the black population grew and grew and grew to such an extent that we are outnumbered 53 million, and we are about 5 million whites, but we've slaughtered them. I don't get the figures.
No,
I really
the black
don't.
population grew 920% during the apartheid rule. And as I understand it, the figures today are probably 70 million people altogether, and possibly 3.5 million whites. Possibly. We don't know because they can't give you realistic numbers. But I mean, 70 million to 3.5 million, that makes you about 5% of the population. And of that 3.5 million, a third, 1 million, and more, we don't know, we can't tell the figure, are living in absolute dire poverty.
So there's only two, give or take, the 1.5 million that are really employed in South Africa, or one partner is working at least. And so out of 3 million the white South Africans, they are still refusing employment. Where are they going to find employment for all the other 53 million that are unemployed in South Africa? Because I saw the ANC said that he is going to create, 500,000 jobs?
Yes, 500,000 jobs. But at the same time as that, international companies are withdrawing from South Africa.
Oh, yes, they are. They are in droves. Hotel groups are selling off their assets. They're selling to any buyer at a steal. The rand is plummeting every now and again because of what's happening in South Africa. A lot of big companies are pulling out.
Well, Lee, if you consider this, the new law that they're thinking of bringing in says that 52% of your company must belong to blacks. And on top of that, now, the new Land Redistribution Act means that your commercial property, your building, your everything can be taken away from you for any or no reason whatsoever.
Yes.
So why would any big company risk their assets in a country like that, where the building and the land, which is a big part of any company's assets, may not belong to them tomorrow, and they have to give, not sell, 52% of their business to their workers.
Yes.
There is absolutely no incentive to do business in that country.
No. They want education for free. They want medical for free. They want free electricity. They want free water. They want free housing. They want free schooling. They want free transport services. Everything is. This is a wonderful free country. And if they don't get it, they burn it down to the ground. So there's no municipal buildings, and there's no post offices, and there's and it's just when you look at the newspapers and when you look at the news, it's just fire. It's burning cars. One woman had to get out of her car and run, and she ran into the bushes. She didn't realize that the route that she was traveling was they had a service delivery riot, and she went right smack bang into the riot, and she, luckily for her, had flat shoes and she could run, and she had her phone with her in her pocket, so she could flee away, and the car was torched, and she lost her vehicle, and she's a single mum.
I read the other day as well that there were 400 RDP houses built, which were just about ready to be handed over. But next door to that was a squatter camp. So that squatter camp burnt down the RDP houses because they were not for that camp, the inhabitants of that camp.
Yes, that's true. And then they go and they sell those RDP houses, which they are not allowed to do. They get the RDP house and then they sublet and they sell, and it's a booming business. The RDP housing system in South Africa is a booming business.
But there are not nearly enough of them because there are not enough white builders.
Nope. No.
Really, honestly, the more you think about it, the more it leads back to affirmative action. Every problem in South Africa leads back to affirmative action.
It does. And I mean, affirmative action after 21, 22 years, really? If it hasn't worked in 22 years, where is it going to work today? And it will never work because we are too few. Our minority is too few to really make a difference in the economy with regards to if you unemploy all 3 million of us. What's going to be left?
Nothing, because as I understand it, and once again, you cannot get anything correct out of South Africa, but as I understand it, the few remaining whites are the majority of the tax base.
That's correct.
I read that everywhere.
You are audited. If you are white, you are audited. If you've got a huge, or if you're a company or a business, you will be audited, and they'll make sure that you pay your tax. But to them, nope. They don't get audited, and
yeah, it just none of it makes sense. There is no sense in it because. I read an article recently that if you took every penny from the rich people in South Africa, it still would be a drop in the ocean. It would not help the masses.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I also read that 417 million South African millionaires left the country last month.
Yes, I also saw that article. Corinne, you must see the property market, the houses that are being sold, land, vacant land, farmland. These people are desperately trying to get out of this country, even into an African country. Zambia is a lot of farmers are trying their hand at farming in Zambia, for example, and they are welcoming these white farmers with open arms, and the economy is doing great because of the farming that's going up there. So even if you can't get out to an overseas country like Europe or Canada or the US or Australia, some of the African countries are opening their doors to white farmers, and people are really considering it.
But then again, Leigh, you have this problem. That country got rid of the Europeans. Now they're inviting you back. Who knows? Yes. Once you've got an established productive farm, how can you ever be sure that they're not going to take it away from you again.
You don't. That's the risk you take. That's the problem.
And
we are hearing rumors. We saw it in on social media, but we are hearing more and more rumors of Zimbabwe merging with South Africa. Whether it's going to happen or not is still on the cards.
Yeah.
And that's also it's very fearful. We're very fearful.
That is a huge threat. And of course, if Malema were to come into power, which is quite possible, if he would merge with, he would work closer with Zimbabwe. I wouldn't say it would become one country because nobody knows what they have in their heads.
Yes.
But he does work very closely with Robert Mugabe. He's a hero to Malema. And that would be the most terrible thing that could happen to the remaining whites in South Africa.
Yeah, that is a death sentence. Straight up. A death sentence for everybody.
Yep, I firmly believe that too, Leigh. Malema is my biggest fear for South Africa.
He's as far as I'm concerned, and that's just my personal opinion. I feel that he is the most dangerous and very, very clever man, and people underestimate what he
is capable of.
And I also feel that he is part of the violence behind South Africa. The free education and the roads must fall and no Afrikaans in any university or schools. He's making the country ungovernable. And the ANC is not looking at this. They are just not dealing with him.
Yes, because they expelled him from the ANC party, and everybody took a sigh of relief and thought, well, that's the end of him. But he came back stronger than ever.
Oh, yes. And his party is growing like you cannot believe. And it worries us a heck of a lot because this man is destruction all the way.
Yes, well, the DA came out the other day and said that he is behind the university violence, and they want to take his party to court because of it. But I mean, all these court cases against them either disappear or come to nothing.
It's futile, and he is behind it. We see the EFF students, the roads that are being blocked by EFF supporters, the universities that are being burnt, and our children that are being attacked and called, racist. But yet, one friend of mine, her son is English speaking. He can't speak a word of Afrikaans, but because his skin is white, he was attacked at the school and beaten up. And they just presumed that he was Afrikaans.
Well, they're not going to ask you before they attack you. We're coming up to an ad break. We will be back in a few minutes. Okay. You're listening to Radio Free South Africa. This is your host, Karen Smith, and our guest today is Leigh Oxley du Preez of the South African Family Relief Project. We've been talking about the problems facing the whites in South Africa and why there is such desperate need for what Leigh and her charity do. During the break, Leigh told me some devastating news about Anglo-American. Leigh?
Hi, yes, I just got to hear that Anglo-American is also pulling out of South Africa and selling their shares, which is going to impact even more jobs, black and white. So that is devastating news.
Because
it has to be verified still, but as far as we know, they are definitely pulling out.
And Anglo-American is the largest mining company in South Africa.
Yes, that is.
So they employ thousands upon thousands of black miners who will now join the ranks of the unemployed and turn to crime.
That's correct. It's devastating news. Really, it is.
And Leigh, I also heard that the mines, the coal mines, in a very flourishing mining town called Witbank,
Mhm.
have closed down, and that entire town, black and white alike, are literally unemployed.
Yes, the mines has been closed down, and I don't know if you know the Guptas. I'm sure you've heard of them. Have now bought over these coal mines, and or the specific coal mine, and they are. Already starting to hike up the coal prices, which will impact the electricity in South Africa. And eventually, as you know, we're going into winter, we will start with load shedding as well.
Yes, well, Eskom applied for an enormous increase in the electricity price, but were
Yes,
granted half of what they applied for. So they
yes,
are already putting warnings out that there will be rolling blackouts um, and load shedding during this
yes.
winter. So before winter even starts, you know that you are going to have incredible problems.
Yes, we've just barely on the last stretch of the heat wave that we had, or the El Nino this year. We had severe drought. Food prices have skyrocketed, and now being hit by the electricity that is also going to be very expensive, and the rolling blackouts, or the
Yeah, yeah.
it's just not good news for us whatsoever.
So, Leigh, there is another aspect of South African life that we need to touch on before we get to the solution. The Chinese were declared black in 2008 so that they did not have to apply or adhere to the black economic empowerment rules in South
Yes,
Africa.
yes.
So, because they are members of BRICS, they get preferential treatment in South Africa.
That's correct. Say a Chinese family comes into the country and they want to set up shop. They get given the premises to start their shop off with. The family lives in the shop for a month or two and get a flat, and from there they are booming. They are bringing their families over from China, and they are getting preferential treatment before people or children or families that were born in South Africa, meaning the whites.
It just seems, and of course now you're going to have an influx of Russians with the nuclear power station because
Yes,
they're not going to have locals building or
no,
working there. So you're going to
no.
have an enormous influx of Russian people as well.
Yes, and then that's true. And then we don't even talk about all the illegals from Zimbabwe and all these other countries, the African countries, and Nigeria. The Nigerians are also taking over the country. So um, yeah, who knows what the real figures are?
There's no way of telling, Leigh.
No, there's no way of telling because they lie about the statistics, and then the necklacing and the tribal faction fights and the xenophobia, it goes up, and because they are invading their spaces and making money in their areas, and so with all the burning and the looting and the destruction of the universities and the post offices and the municipalities and the schools, and now we are, and farm murders and the home invasions and the poverty, we are getting more crime and illegal immigrants and xenophobia. So yes, it's not a very nice picture I'm painting, but this is reality. This is what we are living.
I know that, Leigh, because as you know, even though I'm not in the country, I watch it very closely. But for people who don't know anything about the South African situation, they need to understand that you are not under threat from just a home invasion or just being killed in your car on the way to work or just being attacked at the till at your local grocery store. It is not only that. It is an entire society under threat from every area of their lives.
That is 100% truth. We are affected by every single thing that happens in this country. I mean, it's obvious. With there are barely jobs for our South Africans, let alone for all the illegal immigrants that we have, and that's why the crime is also high. It affects every aspect of life.
And then you have, as you said, the necklacings, because the blacks become furious that these illegal people are making money off of them. And they just suddenly rise up in protest, burn the guy's shop down and put a necklace on him and burn him to death. And that is just the way of life. And you never know where or when that riot, protest, burning is going to happen.
Yes, in the mornings before you go somewhere, and I've seen this so many times, but people don't really realize how true this is. We have to, it's the same like today. You've got to make sure that you find out on the news and on social media where the riots are going to be, so that you are not caught with your children or your wife or your parents in a vehicle where you cannot get out. So you've got to plan your routes in such a way that you are safe. And then, going out from your gate and coming back into your property, you've got to watch out and look for cars and suspicious people, and your husband's got to check the house before you go in. There are so many different aspects of South African life that people don't realize. To us, this is normal. To people that come to visit from America or from another country, they can't believe that this is how we are living.
Now, Leigh, one of the things that I'm asked so often is, how do we get aid to South Africa? And my answer is always, you cannot send goods to South Africa. The only way to do it is to help financially.
Yes.
Now, people do not understand that either. So I think what you need to talk about is the postal services and why we can't send parcels by post to you, and what happens when you do get massive donations from overseas that you still can't get.
Yes. Well, we are not BEE compliant, but I know of another organization that is BEE compliant, and they try to get a huge donation sent in from another country, and all the second-hand clothing, fairly new actually, still got confiscated at the airport. And they were told that no more second-hand clothing will enter the country because the textile industry is under a lot of pressure, and it will take away people from spending money in the retail shops. So they are not letting through any of those donations. This one person is trying to get shoes through, but it's been sitting at the depot, which they have to pay storage for since October. And that is a compliant organization.
And Leigh, they then levy taxes on those donated goods, don't they?
Yes, we have to pay import taxes in order to get it through. And I feel it takes away from food from people's mouths. So we rely on South Africans, ordinary people around, for the clothing and blankets and things like that. So yes, unfortunately, goods donations is a no-go. Even if you post a package, our postal system is horrendous. You are lucky if you find your goods intact, and even if your goods are actually that you've actually received it. The postal services are corrupt. They steal, they damage, it's the chances of you getting a package from overseas is practically nil. So yes, you would have to use courier services, which is very expensive from country to country. So we are not be able to receive any donations unless somebody comes in on a flight or a bus or a boat with a few things, odd things that they can bring
which
in their luggage.
Which we have done from the United
Yes.
States to you, but it's practically pointless doing that because you can take so little. So yes, people have wonderfully good intentions, and there are extremely kind people out there, but you cannot send goods to South Africa. It is impossible. So they've cut off that avenue of help to the white people as well.
Yes, that's true, and it's affecting everybody because now, or even like I said, this other company or organization is BE compliant. They work in the black camps, and they can't get clothing through for them. So we are even less inclined to get. We can't. It's impossible. It's just impossible.
Well, Leigh, it just every avenue that you turn to for help, there are mountains in your way.
Yes.
Mountains. I mean, and people outside of South Africa do not understand that the post offices have been on strike for 18 months and most of them are burnt, and the post office is broke, and the airways refuse to take parcels from the post office in South Africa because the bills have not been paid.
That's correct. They have now refused to transport any post office parcels. Obviously, like you said, because their bills are not being paid. And now what's been happening is these parcels are sitting in warehouses and they are not being distributed and they are going missing. Expensive equipment, expensive gifts, special gifts.
Just
people
gone.
that have ordered online, it's gone. You won't get it. You're lucky.
I saw that Amazon here is refusing to send anything to South Africa, so they've closed off business with South Africa because they were suffering so many losses from the parcels being stolen, broken, not delivered.
Yes, the insurance, they just couldn't keep up with the insurance claims anymore. It was just not viable for them to keep doing business in South Africa because of the theft and the corruption.
Wow. So Leigh, we have now painted a very, very dark picture for the people that you help. But I am very, very glad to be able to say that we have come up with a solution that is not a countrywide solution. It will not help the 1 million people in the camps, but it is a start. And if this plan is successful, we could do more of them, and we would be able to help more people. So Leigh, this is your pet project for this year, apart from all the other things that you do, which you are not going to stop doing. This project is an additional thing that you would like to do. So I would like you to start from the very beginning and talk about it because it is so exciting.
Yes. Well, as you know, Corin, I like to work with a lot of organizations. I believe that when people work together, we can do a lot more. VAS Foundation, I don't know, you probably know Quentin and Esmeralda, a wonderful couple. They've come up with a brilliant idea of going into these camps and getting the people who are already skilled but are jobless or unemployed, and getting them to practice their skill and open up small businesses. And in the end, go back into the camps and train the new generation with these skills.
Yes. I was talking to Quentin about that last week, and what they would require is obviously like a warehouse or something to that effect, where the unemployed but skilled blue-collar tradesmen in the camps could then train the younger generation who have no hope and no future and will not get properly educated. They could train them to do. So we have a bunch of plumbers, and they teach these kids plumbing skills, and then we go out into the community and start a little business that does plumbing or carpentry or backyard mechanics on cars
Or
or
security gates. The steel industry, the
yes,
security
yes,
industry is huge in South Africa. So,
yes.
yeah.
So we would then be using the skills that are there and that are idle, giving those adults who are unemployed some self-respect back, and
Yes.
at the same time training the youth into a necessary skill that there is a demand for.
Yes.
So what would be required would be a huge building and obviously all the tools of the trade, plus, of course, the goods necessary. So you would need the steel to make the gates, etc.
Yes. Yes.
And the way that we externally could help with that is by donating the funds required to set up such a thing.
Yes, that's correct. And I believe in Quentin and Esmeralda's work. They have done phenomenally, and I think the idea that they have working directly in a shop environment or in the market is brilliant. I think it's a fantastic idea. I support them all the way, and they are enabling these folks that are just sitting and not being employed in hopelessness to be employed and carry on the torch or for the young people.
Absolutely, absolutely, Leigh. And there is the take some of their hopelessness and take some of the, well, it is hopeless because they have no self-respect, they have no self-worth, and we would be giving that back to them, and at the same time giving hope of a future to the younger generation.
Yes, that's correct.
So if we combine that plan with your plan, Leigh, your new baby, which I'd really like you to talk about because I'm so excited about it.
Yes, we have been looking at our farm, starting up a farm project. The farm project is completely self-sustainable. We would be teaching also hand in hand with, obviously, with Esmeralda and them. We're going to take in entire little family, mom, dad, and children, and we will be teaching the children from small. We will have each child's birth certificate in place, the immunizations up to date. Mum and dad will both be sure to have their ID documents. We will do parenting classes for the children or for the parents. We want a proper vegetable garden going. We want to do the chickens with the broilers, which are your meat chickens, and the egg layers. We've been looking at a property which has an awesome land where we can start up the project. So the woman will do sewing and carpet weaving out of recycled material. And the men, we've got somebody at a security company who has offered to come and teach these guys and give them their first certificate, as a security officer. Yes, there's so many things that we want to get these people working on. So it's not only the blue after the men with steel work, and that we are going to try and help the woman, empower the woman as well. on the farm. They basically sign a 1-year contract with us, which in that year they save up in order for them to afford a little place to stay and the first month's rent and electricity bill. And after a year, we kick them out of the nest basically, and we assist them with their own little business and reintegration back into society.
So, Leigh, you need to buy a farm.
Yes.
And then on the farm, you need to put up housing for these people.
Yes.
And you need a communal kitchen, and you need
Yes.
seeds, and you need animals, and you need all the things that a farm needs. And these people will be working on the farm, working with the animals, planting, whatever. But
Rent-free.
Rent-free.
Yes, rent-free, and they will be getting 3 meals a day.
And a roof over their heads. And
the roof over their heads. What we do is there's a system in place. In the morning, everybody attends to the farm and all the animals. From a certain, and obviously have breakfast. The children will be go to school or preschool, and for the duration of the day, they will practice their skill or learn a new skill. And we will rotate the people so that they don't only learn one specific skill. And in the afternoons, obviously lunch, they go back to what they were working with. The goods that they make will be sold at a market, a boer market or a farmer's market, and all the proceeds will go to the people themselves. We will teach them how to save properly. We will teach them how to manage their budgets. And in the afternoon, late afternoon, the animals on the farm will be attended to again. And then the men will be responsible in shifts. This week, these three guys are responsible for the evening shift of the security on the farm.
Wow. And Leigh, how do you plan to feed these people? I mean, would you have a communal kitchen where they work together?
Yes, it's a communal kitchen, and like I said, we will be planting our own food. We will be producing our own food, like for example the vegetable gardens and the chickens and the goats. And then we will also be producing soaps and candles for resale. And we are looking at doing some catering for weddings and weaving. So there's a lot of different things that they can do to generate an income for the farm as well as the people. Each person will earn a salary on that farm. It's like a work contract, but with housing and meals.
And medical care and schooling for the kids and everything.
Yes, it's a complete community actually, but just on a farm.
And who would then be in charge of this, Leigh? I mean, because we have heard of abuses in some of the camps. The people.
This is why we're doing this, because I've been in many of these camps, and a lot of these landowners these people are staying in whatever building material they could get together to and put a few nails in just to keep a roof over some kind of roof over their heads. And they've got to pay rent, they've got to buy food, look after their family, send their children to school, buy uniform, and they've got to go, there's no electricity, and they've got to go out and beg every day and come back and pay rent to the farmer in order to stay on this plot or on this piece of land. And it's safety in numbers. It's better to be on a piece of land where you pay a minimum amount of rent than to be out on these awful streets with your family. And so I felt that a lot of these families are being taken advantage of, and they're not really working because they are in such desperate dire circumstances that they basically they're lucky if they can find a little piece job cutting grass or cleaning a car or do some painting. Sometimes they make nothing, and they've got to stand at the intersection and try and beg for a little bit of money so that they can pay the day's rent and buy a little bit of food for their families. And I feel it's so unfair because they're not being reskilled and they're being taught to rely on
handouts.
Good-hearted people and handouts. Yes.
Yes, and then we're teaching a whole generation of children that is the way to live.
Exactly, and the moral values are down the drain because of the suffering that they're going through.
Leah, it just seems like an endless cycle of this because they can't lift themselves out of it. So tomorrow they have to do the same thing they did today. And the kids, as I say, are being taught the same way of life. And there is no way out, no matter what they do. And it's a relief that they've got the money to pay their rent and eat tonight. So they can't see further than today.
Yes, and if the farmer, feels that, okay, the father or the mom didn't make enough money, they just barely made enough to feed the family, they couldn't pay the rent today, they'll pay tomorrow, and then they've got to do double and walk double and try and do double work, and they are getting behind even further. These people need a hand up, not a hand out. And that's what it's about for me, is that they've got to get working.
Yes, Leigh, because so much of who you are is tied up in what you do.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you ask people that terrible question that Blackbird asked you on his show, who are you? Your first thought is what you do. I'm a show host. I run a charity. It is tied up with what you do.
It's my entire being. It's my entire life. My entire family's life. We are all working so hard to make this organization a success, and so you can't think of anything else because you've got so many eyes and so many critics out there that are waiting on the sidelines, gunning for your fall. so my attention is only for our people and for the suffering, and to alleviate as much and make a difference as much as we can.
Yes, Leigh, but if you were not that, then the who are you becomes I am nothing.
Exactly. I don't mean anything. I don't have a purpose in life if I can't do this. This is my purpose.
Yes, Leigh, but if you were not doing what you do, if you were not the head of South African Relief Project, you would not have anything to describe yourself as. If we asked you that same question, who are you? I'm a resident of a squatter camp. I mean, that gives you no self-worth whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. And this is what my life is about, is helping our own people. It's no use we criticize and we say, yeah, look at them and they are not doing anything for themselves, but people don't understand what these people are, the circumstances that these people are living in, and we can change it. And I believe in it so strongly, and we have had made a lot of headway with helping these camps, but I feel that things like that Esmeralda and Quentin are doing is absolutely fabulous. And our farm project, we need the support. Without international support, we won't be able to uplift these people, and that's what it's about. They've got to get working and they've got to be integrated and their dignity given back to them. And all they need is just a little hand up.
Yes, Leigh. But at the same time, they still will need the handouts. I have
Yes.
seen so much criticism of, giving food packages is not helping. But if you don't give that food package, those people will die.
That's true, because there's no assistance from any government. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to sit on the sidelines and just accept this? We can't do that. I can't go to bed at night knowing that there are people which I could have made a difference, with going to bed hungry, or we have to start somewhere. And that's where we started. We started with giving out the clothing and the food. And then we started with our building projects like Umtentweni and Manziville. And now we want to go bigger and start with our farm project. Everything has been a huge success, not because of me alone, because of all our amazing volunteers and the amazing, amazing support that we've gotten internationally. And we can do this in not only one province. We will make a success of it because we have no other choice.
Leigh, that seems to be the Afrikaner way. If you look at the history of the Afrikaner, out of the most incredibly bad circumstances, like at the end of the Boer War, where their farms were burnt, their water was poisoned, their wives and the elderly and the children died in the camps, those men came back from that and created a first world country in South Africa, having lost 20% of their population. They did this, and the country was incredible. What they built from that devastation of that war was incredible. And it's in your blood to do it again.
It's in my blood. That's quite correct. And these folks have been beaten down so many times, and we've just got to show them that they can do this again. We can do this again, no matter what obstacle we are faced with. We can be a success, and we can teach these people to be a success again. I mean, you know what? You know the story about all the books were burnt in the war. And the mothers didn't have any literature to teach their children, and they started with the Bible, teaching their children how to read and how to write out of the Bible. And if we could have done that we can do so much now, because we've got more support and more people out there. And I believe that there are people in the world that are
willing,
positive about and willing to help in such a venture.
Well, Leigh, if the Afrikaners, the white South Africans, were by some miracle to achieve self-determination, you and your farm and your organization will have built the basis to start another successful South Africa.
Yes, and if we have more communities getting involved and more farm projects after this one, this is only the beginning. It can't stop. It has to carry on. And we can teach another organization or in another province, get another farm up and running. Self-sustainability is the way to go. I believe in it firmly. I've seen it work, and it uplifts a community so quickly, and it's just a winner.
Leigh, a question I haven't asked you is how many families do you foresee having on your first farm?
Well, we are going to start off with 5 families. It's like I said, the entire family, mum, dad, and children. We will be taking in the most vulnerable people. The qualification for getting into our farm project is that you have to be living in one of these camps, and obviously people with very, very small children, babies, and toddlers will be taken in first. The reason for that is that they are obviously very, very vulnerable, and number two, that we can start from tiny, the proper school curriculum for the education. And then we are also going to look at elderly person. You know, people tend to forget that our elderly are very, very wise. And they grew up in not always in the most perfect circumstances, even if in apartheid. Not everybody was rich. We grew up poor. And so I know that there are a lot of elderly people that can teach us along the way as we grow on our farm project.
Absolutely.
Most important time in development of the children is under 6 years old, and that's where we want to get in with the groundwork with the education of the children.
Absolutely, Leigh. You know, because just because the elderly I'm talking about now, just because your body is not able to do the things you did in your youth, does not mean that you can't teach somebody else to do it.
That's the thing, and I feel you know, most families don't always have a granny or a grandpa, and they are forgotten, and we will not forget the elderly. We will have a section for the elderly. Like I said, we're going to start with 5 families, depending on the land. We've got land that we are looking at. It's beautiful. The soil is rich. There's no land claim on it. Unfortunately, we do not have enough money to secure the land. The owner has agreed that we rent to own the land, which is very, very generous of him. Most landowners want a cash price paid from the bank or bond or whatever.
Yes.
So this man is really, really amazing. He wants 400,000 rand deposit, and we are struggling to get this money together in order to secure the land, which is about, I don't know how many dollars, $26,000, just to secure the land. And there's already a little bit of housing, and we can carry on building the housing for these folks. We are looking at about 20 families when the farm project is done.
Wow.
On our first farm, 20 families with children.
Leigh, that's a lot of people. It is a lot of people. In the bigger scheme of things, it is a very small start. But as when you started your charity, it was a small start. You didn't have funds. You didn't have volunteers. You didn't have international backing. You had yourself. And yet,
I did it all by myself, and my hubby went with the car, our little beaten up old car, and he picked up donations and went and dropped it off. Him and I worked day and night when we started this, all by ourselves.
So yes, I think people need to understand that one person with an idea can make an enormous difference. So although this farm project would appear to only help 10 families, it is a start, and if it is successful, you can branch out and get another farm and help another 10 families per year.
Yes, that's per year. So in 2 years, it's 20 families. In 3 years, it's 30, and so on and so forth. And when we start our next farm project, it's going to double. So more people will be skilled and helped and trained in special skills. And even if they can find jobs in another country, wonderful. You know, we've got to get these people working and lifted up. You know?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm so passionate about this. I just wish everybody could feel and see what I feel in my heart and what I see happening. We are very, very hard workers. Karen, I'm sure you know me by now. I work very, very hard with this project, and I believe in it 100%. And I wish that people could see what I feel and see. It's difficult.
No, no, Leah, it's very important for people to understand that the way you started your charity, and look at it now, it started out with you and your husband going in your own private vehicle, getting little donations and helping a very, very few people because there are only so many things you can do in one day. And
Yes.
now your organization stretches throughout the whole of South Africa. Of the 480 camps that we know of, how many are you helping?
6.
Exactly. And hand in hand with the other organizations, much more than 6.
Yes, and then we are excluding, we're not even thinking or talking about the individual families in the different provinces. So we help and assist with individual families as well.
Exactly, Lee. And you've been going how long?
Close on to 2 years, and we've got just over 12,000 members on our Facebook page. And yes, it's been absolutely an amazing opportunity, and I feel that it is an opportunity and something wonderful to be involved with, because I know I'm doing something productive every day, and I don't care about fame and fortune. I care about my people. That's what it's about.
Well, Lee, you may have some fame, but I don't think you're ever going to have the fortune. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no,
I'm sorry to tell you that.
never.
Because every part of you belongs to someone else. You know, everything you do is not for yourself. It's for somebody else. And every
Yes.
penny that you get in is for somebody else, because, wow, I got $2 today, I can feed another family.
And that's how it goes. That's truly how it goes. Diane would tell me, Lee, well, we got in a donation of $100 or $200 or $50, and I was like, oh goodness, okay, so we can feed those people in Rooiwal this week, or we can quickly go out and go and buy vegetables and make up the packs and go feed 4 families in Pretoria North, or you know.
It is. It's literally from your hand to someone else's mouth. I mean, everything you do is like that.
Yes.
And
I'm trying to save a little bit to get the farm project up and going, which is not easy, because how do you choose between a family that's in need of food, but you've got to get this farm project off the ground, because that it's going to help that family indefinitely on the road ahead. So it's very difficult to juggle. At the end of the day.
I wouldn't like to be you, Lee, because the choices you have to make every day are heartbreaking, because you can't help everybody, because it's just impossible. The distance you have to travel, or the amount of food that was donated today.
And you've only got so much funds to work with.
Yes.
So you've got to spread it thinly with everybody, and to try and keep everybody
cared for.
Fed.
Cared for, Lee. It's
yes.
I don't know how you do it. I really don't, because Feest was 20 people today and you can only get to 5. Must be heartbreaking.
Yes, it is. It is, because I've got to choose. We sit in the mornings and we say, okay, guys, we can do these families this morning, but we can't. We've got to look at who's in the worst position and who's got the smallest children. And so, unfortunately, that is where we are. Is that the smaller children are more susceptible to be undernourished and unfed, and so we tend to, but you know that you are failing these other kids and these other families, but they are a little bit bigger, and they're a little bit tougher, so and it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. People don't realize that when you've got to choose between who you give food to and who not, let alone go and choose between black and white.
Yes.
You're fighting a daily battle just to get your own people fed.
Exactly, Lee. And yes.
And who's more deserving and who's not. it's not fair. I know
No,
the world is not fair, but
no.
that responsibility on our shoulders is an enormous responsibility.
Well, Leigh, it
And
is literally. It's this. You have to make the decision who eats today, and
yes,
that is harsh. Nobody should
it's
have to do that.
no, it's heartbreaking. And many times I break down and I've got to just take 2 days off because person is human, and you think of more ways, or how could I do better? What can I do just to get more donations in? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
It's
And Leigh, that is why I do what I do, because I think without the voice to the outside world, there would be no donations coming in.
oh no, absolutely, Corin. You have been an absolute saving grace to many organizations, not only mine or ours. If it wasn't for you giving us this platform, and many other show hosts out there as well, but you most of all, we would not been able to come this far and feed so many families. It wouldn't be possible.
I just feel so helpless because that's all I can do is provide a platform and pray that the people who hear our voices will be touched by the story and help our people because they are deserving. It is not in general. I can't generalize and say none of them did this by choice, but in general, and the majority of our people did not choose this way of life. They're not enjoying it. They don't want to be in a camp.
No, who chooses to be like that? Who chooses for their little family to live in a tin shack with no water, no electricity, no flooring, no windows, no food, no employment, and no assistance from me? Who chooses that?
Well, no, Leigh, it's not by choice. And I think,
Yeah.
I think when, the problem has always been that the world didn't know. And you have seen the outpouring of love and care from the world once they started being told. And
Yes.
it has been a wonderful, heartwarming thing for me to see that simply by educating people or making them aware of the problem, the help and assistance that you have gotten has been amazing. People
Oh,
are
yes.
wonderful, but if they
Yeah,
don't know, they can't help.
that's true. If it wasn't for what you do, I don't know what we would have done, because we've gotten some amazing support and continued support. And without these amazing support that we are getting, we wouldn't have been able to do what we do.
No,
And
Leigh, because you can get goods, you can get clothes, and you can get food. Maybe not enough, but you can get it in South
yes,
Africa. But money, you do not get.
nope. No, that people don't have money anymore in South Africa, and for most families, South Africa is going downhill, as we discussed earlier on. We have more families, mothers or parents taking in their children and their spouses with their grandchildren. And more families are starting to live together because there is no employment, and then you know. It's a vicious cycle, and
So
I,
nobody has money to give because they
no, because
know.
they're barely surviving themselves. You
Yes,
are lucky if you've got a job. You are lucky if you own a business and the government hasn't slapped the tax. What do you call it? Um, um, fine, when if the government doesn't slap you with a fine because you're not BEE compliant on your business, so you're lucky if
yes,
you have
Leigh.
all of
But
those things.
if you were not, yes, yes, Leigh. So if you've got that, you know that you're one paycheck away from being broke. and unable
Yes.
to support yourself.
Yeah, so these folks can help. They do help with a little bit of food. They help with clothing. Some people help with transport here and there. But we need funding. The funding is the most important part for us. Without it, we cannot be a success with the farm project, especially, which I believe with all my heart. I know that this is well, and you've seen what I've done with the organization and how many people we assist every day, and we desperately need this funds to get the farm project up and running.
So
It's vital. We're in emergency mode at this moment in time, because I know that within the next few weeks the winter is here. We've got to get people into shelter, which can be built within a week. So it's vital that we get more support. We need more support.
absolutely, Leigh. And given the exchange rate today is very bad as a South African, but people who donate, the exchange rate is about 17 rand to the dollar. So
Correct.
a dollar is an enormous amount of money in South Africa. So although your farm project is expensive in rands, it is not expensive in dollars.
Yes.
You know, because you're getting an incredible amount of things, rands,
Yes.
for your dollar.
Yes.
So if people donate $50, it is a huge amount towards your project.
Yes, we need the equivalent of about between 26 and 27,000 just to secure the land, and then we are well on our way. There are already structures in place, but we need this funding very urgently, so that we can get going. I'm praying and begging for help here. I believe so much in what we do, and we want to have anybody that is willing to come out to South Africa and come to the farm and actually see what we do. I invite anybody that wants to come to see the work that we do.
But Leigh, in any case, on your website every single day, you post what you have done that day. And
Yes.
your organization does amazing work, but it's there for anybody to see. It's not a hidden thing. It is there, and I really urge people to go to your website, which is S for sugar, A, F for Freddy, R, P for Peter, and SA again, .org. That's SAFRPSA.org. And you will see the amazing work that these people have done. And I urge you to remember that what they are doing was started by two people who were in those same circumstances themselves and realized how many people needed help. So they, out of the goodness of their hearts, started just with themselves and one battered old vehicle, and look at the result. So believe that Leigh's dream of this farm and uplifting the people from those camps is possible, because they have proven over and over again what they are capable of with nothing. So imagine what they could do if we contributed and helped to get this farm project running. The satisfaction of knowing that you had made a whole lot of families self-sustainable, given them self-respect, helped them to live with some pride in their lives, is something that you will not get from doing any other thing. Am I right, Leigh?
That's true, and I believe in it with my entire being that this will work. It can work with enough support from everybody, and even our friends say, "Oh, I've got an idea for your farm project. Please let me know when you've got the farm. I'll come and I'll help out." I'll give my own time. And with the international support, we desperately need this funding. Really, we desperately need it. I can't stress it enough. I know it sounds repetitive, but we are in crisis mode, like I said, because we've got to get these families out from where they are. For me, it's vital.
Absolutely.
And urgent.
Absolutely, Leigh. And please, I urge listeners not to think that this is just, well, 10 families. 10 families is enormous to give them some self-respect and some hope for the future. So I urge you to go to the South African Family Relief Project's website. They have a donate button and they have a contact. If you have questions, if you have anything that you need to ask, Leigh and her volunteers will get back to you. And every dollar given is a life-saving dollar. So think about not buying your next burger, or not going to KFC, or not buying your coffee tomorrow morning, and just giving that amount to South African Family Relief, because they stretch those dollars until they cry, and they use them for the betterment of people who we hope you and I will never be in that situation. Leigh, have you got some closing words?
Not really. I just want to thank you for having me on your show once again, and I want to thank our wonderful supporters. And please, people, this is really something that is doable, and we need your support. I really beg you for your support on this farm project.
Thank you very much for listening tonight, and I hope that you find it in your heart to help and support these people who have nobody to turn to except those that are listening. God bless South Africa, God bless America, and God help the world we live in today.